You're 65 years old, and between you and your spouse, you've amassed a retirement portfolio valued at $1.5 million. But how much are you actually going to be able to spend in retirement? This is the exact question that Chris and Wendy came to us asking when they needed help with their retirement planning. Chris and Wendy were still working, but were looking to retire as soon as possible. They knew they had saved up a good amount of money, but had no idea how that would actually translate to a paycheck in retirement. So let's dive into the details to figure out how much they'll be able to spend in retirement. So Chris is 64 years old and Wendy is 65. And as far as their retirement accounts are concerned, we have $110,000 in Chris's TFSA, $800,000 in his RSPs. And then for Wendy, we have $400,000 in her RSP and $120,000 in her TFSA. They also had a joint savings account with $130,000 in it. As far as their government pensions, if they both retired today, next month if they started their CPP, Chris would get $1,012 per month moving forward. That's before taxes. And Wendy would get $1,092 per month, again, before taxes. For old age security, they'd both be eligible for the maximum amount at 65, which would be $713 per month. And then Wendy also had a work pension from her previous job, which would pay her $1,500 per month in retirement. Their house was valued at $750,000, and they still had $30,000 left owing on their mortgage. Now, when it came to expenses, they wanted to maintain the same lifestyle that they currently had when they're working. So while they were working, they were bringing home $14,000 per month after taxes, and it felt like at the end of every month there was nothing left. So they figured they would need to be able to spend $14,000 per month in retirement to keep maintaining their lifestyle. So based on these assumptions, would Chris and Wendy be able to retire? So let's take a look at their net worth over time to see if retirement is feasible for them. So in the light blue color, we have their house, and we can see it keeps growing over time. In the dark blue, we have their registered accounts, so their RSPs, and we can see those are being drawn down. In yellow, we have their TFSA, again being drawn down, and in brown, we have their non-registered account. So we can see that they're okay to spend that $14,000 per month in retirement, again, growing every year by 3% just to keep up with inflation. But by the time we hit 2036, they're out of money. They've spent all of their retirement savings, and now we see this red starting to appear, which is debt. So to maintain their current lifestyle, they would have to borrow against their home to keep funding their retirement. So we can see that they can do that for a few years, but eventually the value of the debt would exceed the value of the home. And again, no bank would keep lending them money. But the way that this is looking right now, this plan is not feasible. So they're going to run out of money, and they don't have enough equity in their home to keep sustaining that $14,000 per month in retirement. So what do? So typically, when someone is not on track, there's three options. Option one is working longer, which they really did not want to do. Chris and Wendy were kind of at the end point, and the stress with working, they just wanted to be done. So that's not an option. So option two is to save more while they're still working. But again, they wanted to retire as soon as possible, so that really wasn't an option as well. And then option three is try to get a higher rate of return with their portfolio. And again, to do that, you'd have to move up the risk scale. And they were already kind of at their maximum as far as their risk tolerance was concerned, so they weren't really interested in that either. So what do, right? So let's talk about their expenses. Again, they told me that whatever was coming in from their work today, it was all being spent throughout the month. But in retirement, would they still have the same expenses? So let's dig a little bit deeper. So as we can see, Chris and Wendy were both bringing in $7,000 per month after taxes for a family total of $14,000. Now, as far as their monthly expenses were concerned, they were saving $4,000 per month. They didn't have any payments on any loans or debts outside of their mortgage. Their mortgage was $2,500 per month, groceries $950, clothing $200, shelter, so how much they were paying for their home insurance and any repairs. They budgeted around $1,500 per month, gas and such $600, insurance premiums $250, direct medical expenses, so Wendy had a prescription that she had to pay for every month, $500, and then recreation, so their travel. Wendy also had a golf membership that she was paying for. It was about $3,200 per month, and then miscellaneous was $300. So as we can see, their monthly expenses are $14,000, which was matching their income. So they were right. But in retirement, some of these expenses would go away. So they don't need to save $4,000 per month now that they're retired. So that goes away. Their mortgage was going to be paid off relatively soon. So as mentioned, they only had about $30,000 left. So that expense was leaving. As far as their insurance premiums, they're paying for disability policies. Well, now that they're not working, they don't really need those policies anymore. So we can save the $250 there. And as far as recreation, now that Chris was retiring, he also wanted to get a golf membership, and they wanted to do a little bit more travel. So that would actually go up to $4,500 per month. So their total monthly expenses, when we get rid of the items that are no longer relevant in retirement, were $8,550 per month. And if we get rid of the travel and entertainment, it's only $4,050 per month. And the reason we want to separate those two out, because their plan was to only travel until they were 80 years old. They figured that, by then, looking at, their parents and, other friends that are a little bit older, they seem to not travel as much or at all by the time they reach 80. So they really wanted to get a good 15 years in of travel and entertainment. And they also figured they wouldn't need their golf memberships after 80 years old as well. So we want to separate those out. So when we update Chris and Wendy's expenses to reflect the budget we just looked at, the plan looks a lot better. And now they're not in a position where they're in any danger of running out of money. So there's actually room to spend even more there on discretionary items like travel. So let's say we increase that to $8,000 per month in retirement. So as we can see, even by increasing their travel and entertainment budget to $8,000 per month until they're 80 years old, they're still on track to achieve their retirement goals. So no, they're not spending $14,000 per month, but they're actually able to spend more on themselves because a lot of those items that they were paying for, like their savings and their mortgage, again, I wouldn't consider that spending money on yourself. So this is actually in putting them in a position where they're able to enjoy more in retirement than they were while they were working. Chris and Wendy were relieved to find out they were actually able to spend more on themselves in retirement. So now the question becomes, how do they take this money out tax efficiently? So in this scenario that we're looking at, the strategy that we're using is using a proportional withdrawal strategy. So let's say that we withdrew $10,000 per month. A part of it's coming from their RSPs, a part of it's coming from their TFSA, and then a smaller part from their non-registered account. All proportional. Now, the problem with this strategy is when we reach the plan's end, which is age 90 for them, we still have quite a bit of money left in their registered accounts. And all of that money is taxable in the year of death. So it's leaving behind a pretty significant tax bill. So in this first scenario that we're looking at, they're leaving a net estate after tax of $1.6 million. Now, is this the most tax efficient way to draw down their portfolio? Not necessarily. So as we've talked about in past videos, what we want to do is target a certain income level in retirement. So in this case, we want to be able to target $78,000 per year. And we can see by doing that, the graph changes quite substantially. So they're using up their registered accounts a lot quicker into retirement, which means that they're not going to have that huge tax bill at the end of the plan, which could be over 50% tax rate. So at the end of the plan, by using this strategy, all of the money that they have remaining is left in their TFSAs, which is not taxable, and in the value of their home, which again is their primary residence, which is not going to be taxable either. So just by making that one change and targeting an income of $78,000 a year each in retirement, now their final estate is valued at $2.19 million. So that's an increase of almost $600,000, again, just by making that one change. So how much can you spend if you have a $1.5 million portfolio in retirement? Well, as we just saw, there's a lot of factors that come into play. Your age, what you're receiving for CPP, OAS, if you have any additional pensions, how you're invested, so on and so forth. So how do you figure this out? Well, we created a proprietary system that we call the One Retirement Process, where we help our clients get from point A to point B to figure out how much they can spend. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can check out the link in the description. Until next time, take care.